Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I am Aamaan, and in our Great Speeches series today, we will take a look at an address by former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee from 1st April 2000 at the Conference of Chief Executives of Public Sector Enterprises in New Delhi. Vajpayee delivered this speech 9 years into the liberalization era when India was grappling with the fundamental question of the state's role in business. Why revisit this speech now? As India marks a shift in its privatization strategy in 2025, Vajpayee's approach to public sector reform remains a guiding principle. Recent developments show the Modi government has abandoned its aggressive privatization agenda, choosing instead to pour billions into revitalizing state run enterprises. Vajpayee began by acknowledging India's historical context and the task that faced the newly independent nation. He said, at the midnight stroke of 15th August 1947, India emerged as a free nation and the inheritor of an economy that had been designed to serve the exploitative interests of her colonial rulers. A land rich in natural resources, India barely had any manufacturing industry worth its name. The Prime Minister used concrete examples of colonial exploitation to make this point. He said, the exploitation of India during colonial rule is best exemplified by the fact that cotton grown in her fields was processed in Lancashire mills and shipped back to be sold to Indian consumers, or the fact that salt used for weighing down empty cargo ships while sailing from foreign shores to Indian ports was sold at a price lower than that of salt produced in India. End quote. This historical framing was crucial to Vajpayee's argument that public sector enterprises were born out of necessity, not ideology. He said, in these circumstances, the government had to intervene in the form of both mobilizing resources as well as setting up basic industries that came to be known as public sector enterprises. End quote. Vajpayee was clear in his diagnosis of what had gone wrong. He identified three core problems that plagued public sector enterprises by the 1970s and 1980s. He said, broadly, they are inadequate competition, leading to inefficiencies, inadequate accountability, making them careless about productivity and profit, and inadequate motivation, making them uneager participants in the economy. End quote. Vajpayee then took direct aim at his own political class, acknowledging how politicians had misused public sector enterprises. He said, political parties in power contributed to the decline of public sector units too, by using them as fast breeders of jobs instead of making them sustainable, competitive, and fruitful players in the national economy. Political expediency of the moment was allowed to prevail over the future viability of public sector units. End quote. He also criticized the monopolistic environment that had weakened public sector enterprises. He said, the monopoly environment enforced by previous governments in the guise of helping public sector units actually had a debilitating impact on them. Cumbersome procedures that formed the backbone of the pre-liberalization license permit quota Raj helped only to worsen matters. End quote. The speech then turned to performance realities. Vajpayee gave statistics that highlighted the scale of the challenge. He said, of the 235 operating public sector enterprises, more than 100 are loss incurring units. In a third of public sector enterprises, capacity utilization is less than 50%. End quote. Yet, rather than advocating for wholesale privatization, Vajpayee offered a different path forward. He said, you have to arrest these worrisome trends and ensure purposeful functioning as well as higher profitability of your respective enterprises. There is no dearth of opportunities. Indeed, in many ways, you have greater opportunities than the private sector. End quote. Vajpayee's approach to disinvestment was strategic, contrasting with the blanket privatization rhetoric that would dominate later discourse. To those who unthinkingly criticize our disinvestment policy, I have this to say. Ours is a well thought out strategy to revitalize the public sector by bringing in competition, granting greater operational flexibility, reducing surplus manpower, and upgrading technology. End quote. The Prime Minister addressed employee concerns, tackling the most sensitive aspect of public sector reform. He said, I would urge everybody, especially workers, to dispel unfounded fears about the effects of disinvestment. We are fully aware of the legitimate and reasonable interests of employees and we are committed to protecting them. End quote. Finally, Vajpayee articulated his vision of economic nationalism that would allow for foreign investment while maintaining Indian control. He said, I would like to reiterate my government's firm belief that our national economy should be built on the principle of India shall be built by Indians. This does not imply that our doors are not open to foreign investment. End quote. Vajpayee's 2000 address shows us that he understood that public sector reform required careful consideration rather than ideology. The speech reminds us that in India's economic journey, the debate has never been simply about public versus private, but about finding the right balance between market efficiency and social responsibility. Thank you for joining us on Great Speeches. For more from The Print, become a subscriber at theprint.in/subscribe. I am Aman in Delhi.